Welcome everyone to the GoFormz webinar, our feature spotlight focused on calculations and specifically calculation fields in your digital forms. My name is Victoria Horn. I'm a marketing manager here at GoFormz, and joining me today is the absolutely incomparable Summer.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Summer. I'm a product manager here at GoFormz. I'm largely responsible for data capture, so that is the template editor experience and anything related to fields.
And we are really excited to walk you through all the fun calculation details. Our agenda for the day is we're going to start with focusing on what is a calculation. For those of you who have never experienced that within GoFormz before, whether you're a current GoFormz user or not. Then we're going to cover a couple popular use cases, general business benefits, some things that you can use it for. And then Summer's going to walk you through how to actually create these calculations, how you can edit, adjust, manipulate your data to actually show up in the way that you need it to and get your forms to do what you want them to. Then we're going to highlight a couple case studies that we've got just from people who've taken advantage of using different calculations within their forms. And then, of course, we're going to cover a Q&A session at the very end. So during the webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A panel within your, not GoFormz, within your Zoom panel, console, or web browser, whichever way you're using Zoom. Submit those questions to us, and we'll get to them. If they're quick and easy, then I'll respond to them as we go through. If we think it's something that everyone can benefit from, then we'll actually just throw those right at Summer live to keep things real exciting. See if we can give her something real tricky to throw her off today. I'm kidding, please. We don't need to do that. We'll answer all your questions that we can. If we don't get to it, the good news is we'll be following up this webinar with a detailed email that'll include some important links and different details that we've covered. It'll include links to the case studies that we're going to bring up. And then, of course, it will include a recording of this webinar. So just in case you registered for it and either have to hop off early or someone from your team couldn't make it, you'll have that recording and you'll be able to share it with them as well. You'll notice throughout the webinar that everyone is set to silent. That means that if you have a question, you will have to use the Q&A panel. We won't be able to hear you just say it out loud. And the chat function, I believe, is also disabled. So please make sure you use the Q&A panel. If you don't see it right away, you should be able to hover your cursor somewhere over your Zoom console, and you'll actually be able to see that little panel show up at the bottom or off to the side, depending on how it's configured. All right. I believe that's all the housekeeping stuff. I hope. And let's get started. Let's dive right into all sorts of fun GoFormz calculations details. So at first, you might be thinking that calculations sounds a lot like addition, subtraction, all the fun mathematical stuff that you thought you got to leave behind in high school. And then it turns out you're in business now and they actually do matter and your teacher was right. But the good news is that's not just what a GoFormz calculation does. It can actually handle a lot more detail for your forms. So that can be setting default values, as you see listed here, dynamic field properties, so actually being able to customize how your fields on your form look, even database filtering, form names, and detailed formatting properties. And the calculation builder. As you can see from the screenshot right here, the calculation builder actually shows up within the properties panel of the template editor. So you can go in, make these adjustments and details. Don't worry, Summer's going to walk you through exactly where to find this in case that screen does not look familiar to you. But this screenshot should give you a quick example of how you can see when you first dive into it, it'll show up, give you a completely blank field. You get to start typing. It'll start pre-populating some options for you. So in case you're just playing around, want to see what your options are, those will get highlighted and pre-populate for you. And then if you have any errors, incomplete information, something that just doesn't quite work correctly, then those will actually get highlighted for you. So you'll be able to fix them before you go through and publish and start sending out your form template. All right, the benefits. I feel like listing only 4 kind of undersells it a little bit, but the 4 big ones are having accurate totals. So this is everything from overtime calculations, sales tax, your work order details, cost and pricing of materials. You get to know that all those calculations are happening automatically for you and there's no more mismanagement or confusion, or if you're like me, fumbling around with your cell phone because you trust your cell phone calculator a lot more than this calculator up here. You also get the opportunity to customize the experience of your forms based on the individual that's filling it out. So whether you're using custom user or group settings, you have the ability to customize and adjust that. So that way you can actually make sure your form experience is tailored to the individual filling it out. You also get to configure databases or data sources that can reflect within your forms in real time. And you can automatically build and complete form fields. That way you can save your team time. As people are out in the field going, they can select customers, automatically pre-populate a lot of that information, or pre-populate pricing associated with parts numbers. So that way you don't have to keep a running log of that in your head or reference other materials or spreadsheets, or heaven forbid, the really old school inventory books. So those, I would say, are the top 4 reasons to be really excited about calculations. Yeah, those are definitely the 4 reasons that I'm the most excited about calculations. But frankly, what I'm even more excited for is for Summer to walk through how to build these and actually see some common use cases in action. So Summer, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's go ahead and see it in action. So what we're going to go ahead and demo and review today, I'm going to show you guys how to add calculations to your digital form template. So where you're going to go to access that calculation builder. I'll show you how to create 4 and maybe a few bonus ones, powerful calculations to help you power some of those things that Victoria just brought up. So auto-populating data, things like that. And then I'll give you guys a few additional examples of popular digital form calculations. So let's go ahead and see it in action. I'm going to move over to a different tab. So right now I'm inside of our template editor. And in here, I have open a template that I've already set up so I can walk you guys through this information. So the first thing I want to show you, I'm just going to click into a field so I can show you some of those areas where you can access the calculation builder. So the first one is in the required property. The way that you would access that is the 3 dots, and then you'd be able to click use a custom calculation. So you can add a calculation there. The second place is default value. The third place is formatting. And then you can also use it on certain display properties where you can dynamically adjust those visual aspects of your field based on other data on the form. Another property that can be managed using a calculation is our visible property. And one thing I want to mention here is that does also apply to pages. So if you are adjusting your pages, you can dynamically show and hide those pages based on other data on your form. So let's say, for example, you have an inspection and something is marked as failing or not passing, and you need to take photos. You can check a checkbox, and then it can open a page where you can add your photo, something like that. So jumping back in here, and really anywhere you see this FX, that stands for function, is a place that you're going to be able to access the calculation builder. So I'm going to go ahead and click in here, and you'll notice that our calculation builder has opened. The first thing I want to call out is down here, you can expand or collapse that calculation builder based on your needs. So if you're writing one that's a little bit longer, or you just want a bigger screen to interact with, you can have it open like this. Or if you want to have it collapse so that you can see data on your form at the same time, your template at the same time, you can have it collapsed. So this top bar right here is where you'll go to enter your actual formula. And you can enter plain text here by just typing it. So if you have like static text you need for that default value, you can throw that in there too. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put an equals in there to show you what populates. So you'll notice over here on the left side that our options for functions did show up. So we have logic functions, math functions, date functions, text functions, and then various lookup values if you're working with a data source, number functions, and then all of your fields are also listed. This is where you can access them. And then environment variables. You can add these by just clicking on them. You also can type. So if I were to just type in S, you'll notice that it starts filtering based on what you've typed in. Something that's really helpful too is as you hover over them, definitions show up in this area, as well as that syntax. So an explanation of how you could use that individual function. For the sake of example today, I'm going to use some just because that one's simple and easy to talk through. So a few other things I want to call out down here at the bottom. You'll remember that Victoria mentioned validation to help you out, make sure there's no errors, things like that. That can be found down here. So this is letting you know that some function does require at least one parameter. So you'll notice here that it does require at least one number for it to add up. So once we add that, you'll see, so let's say it's a 1, you'll see that that validation did clear out because now there's no errors in the function. So let's say, that I'm just summing something very simple, 1, 2, 3, and then one of my fields, let's choose one that can accommodate a number. So customer zip can accommodate a number. It doesn't exactly make sense for a sum, but just for the sake of example here, we'll do that. And then what you can do is actually click test formula. And what it'll do is it'll add up those numbers for you. And then if I add another number in here, you'll notice that it'll adjust and there is the result. So this is a place where you can go to actually test out that formula. And then when you want to return, you'll come right back down here to the bottom right corner and you can click edit formula to go back to our actual builder. One other thing I want to call out when you're in here is this learn more. If you click that, that will open up. Actually, let's go ahead and click it and show you our calculations.GoFormz documentation. And this is a great resource if you want to learn more about formatting, what's available, and other information like that. Maybe some examples that may apply to you, things like that. So popping back over here, I am actually going to clear this out. If I were to save it, I would hit done to do so. It's pretty nonsensical, so I'm going to delete it and not add it to my template right now. Awesome. Okay, now that we've gone over the calculation builder itself, I'm going to go ahead and show you some of these calculations that I have set up to make this template smarter, faster, more efficient, and to help me capture more accurate data. So the first thing I want to show you guys is up here in the settings cog. Open this up and we have something called default form name. So default form name will actually allow you to configure a naming convention for every form that's created from this template. So what I've added in here is service date -demo work order -customer -work order number. And you'll notice this is the one place where you don't have to use the equal sign and the calculation syntax, the same syntax. You can just put your fields directly in here to reference them. So as I create a form and fill out the data, it will autofill into that form name. So I've added here service date. You'll notice that that matches a field here. Demo work order, that's just plain text. Customer, which is another field I have on the form. And then work order number, which is another field on the form. When you're adding a field, you do put it inside of those square brackets. Awesome. And I'll show that off how that works, how it works in real time after at the end. So the next example I want to show you guys is this section over here, sales rep. So let's say that this area of information applies to the person who's actually filling the form out. So what I did here is I set up a calculation using environment variables. So this is current user first name. I concatenated it with an and, added a space, concatenated again and added that last name. And so what this is going to do, if I go ahead and hit test formula, is actually pull the information from the user who is filling out the form. What's great about this is that this entire section can auto-populate using that data. And so just to show you guys how I set that up, just going to clear that out. And so this was current user. Oops. I'm still in test, actually. So that was user first name. I went ahead and added my and, concatenated with the and then I can go ahead and add, oops, spelled it wrong, current user last name. So really simple to set that up. I'm not going to save it because I did already create it. And then go pull that data. I did something very similar with each one of these, but for the specific piece of information. So that phone number, that email address, and then service date is just pulling the today's date. Cool. So that's just showing off how you can use those environment variables. So this next section is all using a data source. So I have a data source that's called customers. This is my example data source. So just showing you guys that that's there. So what I did here is I've added a database field. I drag over a database field and I configured it to use that data source customers. And now that this is on here, this can be my key field. So just to show you how I can now reference that, once this piece of information is filled out in customer, all of the rest of the information in this section can automatically populate. I only have to select one piece of information and every other related piece of data will show up on my form. So hopping into the calculation builder, this is a database calculation. And so when I click on this, I can just show you the core components. So in that syntax, it's database. the data source name, which is that example data source customers. You don't have to remember these off the top of your head. I would never. If you scroll down to the bottom of that section, you'll notice here that you have them, all your data sources listed. In this account, it's my demo account, I only have 3. But if you had more, they would all be listed there. And you can use this button to just copy it, and then you'd be able to paste it up here. One tip is making sure that you put it inside of those quotations. The name does have to be inside of the quotations for the function to work. Then the next item is that key field. Remember, I called out this is my key field. So I just put in the square brackets the name of that field. And then I add the piece of information, which matches the column header of the section of the column of data that I want to grab. So I want to grab the address. So jump back here to explain that to you guys. So this is my key column, and this is my address column. So address is what I want to grab for that particular field. And then I set that for city, state, zip for those other fields as well. So just hop back out of that. And yeah, did something similar for each of these other fields. The next example I want to show you guys is working with totaling or summing inside of a table. So this one I want to call out because you do have to go to a slightly different area to access it. And then the formatting is also slightly different. So I've selected this table. And when we go over here to the properties panel on the right side, you'll see that all my columns are listed. The one I want to interact with is total. So I'm going to click on that, and it'll open the properties specifically for that column. Scrolling all the way down to the bottom is where we'll see default value. And if I click into default value, you'll notice that I've already added this function in here. And what this function is going to do is it's going to take each of these items in column 2, whatever the respective row is, times by column 3, whatever that respective row is. And what this particular function, I have an if function in here because what I want it to do is if that is greater than 0, then I want to add that value into this total. If it's not, let's just leave it blank so it doesn't affect my calculations. So that's really what's happening here. You could also just use this portion of the calculation if you didn't care if it showed an empty value. But just to have it nice and clean, we use the if statement. So just to explain this a little bit more, you'll notice I have this row function in here. Row returns the number of the row your formula is in, which is why you can set it once for this entire column, and it will know which row it should be summing or totaling for you. All right, so I did something very similar for this same for this table just below. So if I were to hop in here, you'd see that I have exactly identical calculation. Then down here in labor and services, what I did was I also did a sum, but this one is summing the table, this labor and services table. So what I have in here is if the sum of labor and services, which is summing column 4, so you put that column first, that's why the 4 is listed here, row 1 through column 4, row 4 is greater than 0, then what we want to do is put that sum in there. Otherwise, we'd leave it blank. So this formatting is a little bit different. Basically, what you do is you put the column number first and then the number of rows you want to sum. So if the data I had was in the second column, I would just swap out the 4s for 2s. And it would be the second column, row 1, through the second column, row 4, or if I had a different number of rows, if that makes sense. So go ahead and close that out. I did the exact same thing here for the materials table as well, set that up. And then the next one I want to show off is this total. So what it does is just add these two together. So again, keeping that if statement in there to make sure it's blank if there is no data, just to keep your form nice and clean and looking nice. But this one is a lot simpler. I just put in some of the 2 fields that were listed there. So total labor and services, total materials and parts, and it'll sum those 2 together. So we can get our final total. All right, so let's imagine this. The next thing I want to show you guys is when you're adjusting some of those like visible properties. So imagine that this section over here, the project images, is optional for your form user, the person filling out the form, that sales rep, unless this value goes over 1,000. If the job goes over $1,000, let's imagine that we really want to strongly advise they grab some project images. So something we could do is have them turn red if the project goes over 1,000. So what I did here is I set up a calculation where again, if image is empty, because we only want it to show up if it's empty, and if that total is greater than 1,000, we'll turn it red. So this is using that hex code. For red, you can add any hex code that you want if you're choosing in here. And then this is the default blue. So otherwise go blue. And if it's full, always turn it blue. So that's really what this is saying right here. Go ahead and close that. And just as a pro tip, if you want to find a hex code, you're not familiar with it, but you want to use other colors on here, you can grab those hex codes by pulling them from this field here too, if you want, from our date picker or our color picker. Awesome. Okay, cool. So those are the calculations I have set up here. And then now what I really want to do is just show them off to you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and click preview and show you how this data, setting those up, can really save a ton of time for your form user when they're going to fill it out. So you'll notice over here in this left section that all of my information has actually already pre-populated. I didn't even have to do anything. All I did was open the form and all of my data was pulled because I used those environment variables. Then here from the dropdown, I can go ahead and select a customer. I selected BV General. Again, I only interacted with a single field and all of this data has already populated, pulling from that data source. So as the sales rep starting this process with a customer, I've only selected a single field and already have this entire top section with accurate data. What's really amazing about using calculations is that you can save an extreme amount of time and you have higher quality data because it's more likely to be accurate. You don't have to worry about manually filling in those details. They've already pulled in. Another thing I want to show you guys here is, remember at the beginning when I set up my default form name, my form name up here has already populated. So it grabbed that service date, like we referenced, added demo work order, included that customer name, and then put in my work order number, which is an auto number and auto populates on every subsequent form. Cool. Okay, so now just to show you how those tables are working now. So let's say this is like an installation charge. We'll go ahead and throw 2 hours on there, give it a rate of 100. And then, maybe it's like removal, like maybe they're doing something with an AC unit. And that took 1 hour, again, $100 per hour. You'll notice that it's starting to total here. And because we've added a value, it's also totaling down here and giving us our current total, project total. So let's imagine that it is like an AC installation and they're doing, 3 AC units or something like that. I don't actually know how much those cost, but let's imagine that they cost $500 each. And what I want you guys to do is watch this section down here because I did set up that function to have these turn red if the project went over that total. So when I add the 3 here, you'll notice that it automatically turned red, letting me know that my project total is at an amount where these are strongly advised. Once I add the images in there, the color would remove and that would be satisfied. You can do something similar with required fields as well. So if what you wanted was to make the field required, so instead of strongly advised or using a color to call it out, you could also put that same function into the required field property to make sure you're capturing the data that you need. And then all of that is totally conditional based on exactly what you need on your form and what you need to capture and convey and pre-fill in on your particular template. Awesome. Okay, so now that we've shown those off and how they all work, I'm going to jump back over to the webinar and give you guys a few more examples of other time-saving calculations in our digital forms. So the first example, scanning barcodes. So you use the form to scan a barcode, and then it would instantly populate corresponding data. So instead of, how I selected the name from a dropdown, instead you would scan a barcode, and then all that data would populate for you. Second one, auto-populate customer info using a drop-down menu. Showed that one off today, actually. So using a data source, selected that piece of information, and all of the customer data populated. Instantly apply sales tax and discounts. So, let's say you have an order form and you fill out all the sales information, and then you can select the particular state and you can have it set up to automatically calculate and add up based on the relevant state sales tax information. dynamically make a field required based upon multiple form criteria. So an example of this would be you have an inspection being conducted, something doesn't pass inspection. So when it's marked as failed inspection, it makes another box with details. So you have to have details of why it failed, make that one required to make sure you're capturing all the relevant information. And then the final one, calculate the difference between start time and end time on timesheets, including overtime. So you can set up logic that either forces them to get an approval or request that they get an approval, or turn something red if it's going overtime, or even just have it set up so the number of hours that are in overtime versus the regular hours are then calculated based on the different rates, and then it automatically sums up accurately for you for a timesheet. Yeah, so lots of really great examples of really powerful time-saving activity calculations that you can set up. Yeah. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Victoria so she can go through some of our case study spotlights.
Those are awesome. Thank you, Summer, for walking through those. I know a lot of times, especially when it comes to some of those sort of Excel style functions and formulas, things can get a little bit tricky and very complex very quickly. So thanks for walking through all the details.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the last thing I want to say is don't be intimidated by it. I went through them kind of fast, but the calculations, once they're set up, are very simple.
And especially thank you for pointing out how to find that documentation too. So if you do get hung up on something, it's okay. Take a deep breath, open up the documentation. There you go. You've got a little more details. Or even better, since everyone will be getting a recording of this webinar, you can just play back what Summer walked through, just rewind, go to that spot, go to that point in the video, play it back again, just in case anything was tripping you up. All right, I'm going to walk through a couple case studies. So if you haven't been to the main GoFormz site, hopefully most of you have, but just in case you haven't, we have a resources center that's actually filled with case studies. So this is just two that I'm going to call out for you that found a lot of the mostly calculations details, but some of the other features within GoFormz especially helpful. So the first one that we've got is actually Oscar W. Larson. So they're a fairly large company, and they have expanded pretty substantially as they've grown, which is amazing. And now they were handling everything from timesheets and billing and payroll and work orders and estimates and energy audits and all sorts of fun things, all on paper, which, as you can imagine, was quite a headache, since most of you are at least somewhat interested in switching from paper to digital forms for however many you're processing in your own business. So they were able to pull in a lot of very detailed calculations. I believe they actually worked very closely with the pro services team and took advantage of that to be able to get everything customized to exactly what they needed. So this allowed their sales reps to suddenly have better estimates and details. It allowed after an energy audit, they could automate, okay, now these are the things that we would recommend, and here's how much it would cost for you to do that, which brought the sales process and their entire sales funnel to a much tighter way to close different customers. And overall, well, of course, the timesheet and payroll data was a big one for them too. They have quite a few employees working in quite a few different locations. So as Summer mentioned, some of those overtime regulations, especially depending on what state you're in, can become a little bit more of a hassle, and being able to customize those depending on who's filling it out especially was fantastic. So they ended up increasing their sales by $10 million through the faster bidding process using instant calculations. They recovered over $300,000 in labor costs by eliminating that process of manually calculating payroll and timesheet data, and of course entering it into their payroll system, because GoFormz lets you automate that process, and saved over 25 tons of paper, which on the one hand is an amazing cost savings for the company, but on the other hand, it was just Earth Day. So I feel like we should call out that is a lot of trees they just saved single-handedly. So good for them. And then our next case study that we really want to call out was Blueprint Automation. And Blueprint Automation had a very particularly difficult time with carbon copy work orders and sending their individual service techs to either install, inspect, or repair different they make the products that make packaging, if that makes sense. They do, it's really cool. Sorry, I was really interested in this one. So they build the machinery that actually creates all the packaging for the individual customers. So if you've seen any unboxing video, I don't know if those are still popular, but they were for a little while. So if you've seen a really cool unboxing video where you're like, wow, that packaging is fantastic, Blueprint Automation is the company that makes the machines that go out to the customers to be able to print and set up and fold and manufacture all these different packages. So they would send technicians out to either install them, inspect them, or repair them, and needed a way to calculate how long they were there, how long the drive time was, the billable rate versus the hourly rate of the employee for that individual drive time. But they also needed a way to gather signatures and then automatically email that both to the client and to their office team to be able to start processing all the payment information. And as you can imagine, with carbon copy documents, that got a little bit hectic, and they found a better solution with GoFormz, thankfully. So they actually used calculations in a lot of the ways that Summer has just walked you through, in being able to pull up those customer information, all that customer information, and have that automated. It wasn't necessarily focusing on the math side, but focusing on all the other features within calculations for GoFormz. So those are two really fun case studies. If you haven't seen the rest of the case studies available, again, you can go to GoFormz.com. Our resources center has that and a whole lot more information to give you more details, not just about calculations, but also about other ways that people specifically in your industry are using GoFormz, and give you a couple tips and tricks on new and unique features you can start implementing to save yourself some time and some money. Because we like helping people help their businesses. All right. Now is a perfect time. I'm going to start going through some of the key takeaways for the webinar. If you haven't already entered any questions into the Q&A panel that you see at the bottom of the side of your screen, now is a great time to do that. And I'm going to roll through these key takeaways. So first and foremost, the calculations are more than just mathematical formulas. As Summer showed you, you can change colors of forms, you can change properties of forms, you can pull information in from different data sources, you can customize how a form looks specifically based on who's filling it out, and you can autofill even the information of the person filling it out to save them the hassle of having to go through and type their name in, and then their own phone number, and then their own address, which I don't know why that's one of the most tedious things whenever I'm making an online purchase personally, but I absolutely hate it. Anyway, so then the next point is being able to personalize that form experience. So those are those dynamic form fields that Summer walked you through. You can make these forms completely customizable depending on what your exact business needs are, but not just that, also depending on your customer needs. So if your customer has a specific form they need filled out in a specific way, you can gather a PDF from them, load it directly into GoFormz, and then automate and pre-fill a lot of that information in detail just within your template editor. You also have the ability to significantly reduce your data entry time. If the details from Oscar Larson did not put that a little more in perspective for you, suddenly you're not having to manually enter all this data, and you're not having to calculate it. So not only are you minimizing errors, you're making sure that it happens instantaneously, which saves everybody time and saves your office team from having to do those manual calculations, which I feel like is actually just a gift to them, not just giving them their day back, but the pleasure of not having to manually calculate it. And then, of course, the fact that these opportunities to automate are nearly endless. You can customize your forms to do absolutely whatever you need it to do, which is pretty fantastic. It can be a little bit daunting, as Summer mentioned. Just in case it feels a little intimidating at first, take a deep breath, open up the documentation, and you would be surprised how quickly and easily your brain starts to work in that same function style syntax, I guess would be the right wording. All right, we've got a couple questions rolling in. We're going to start with some of those, but if you have questions, please don't hesitate to throw those in the questions panel now. We're still going to get to them. If for whatever reason we run out of time or we're unable to answer them for you here, do not worry. We will be following up with people. We will be making sure that you get all of your questions answered, because we don't want anybody left kind of high and dry here. So first question, is it possible to calculate fields across more than one form? Specifically for this individual, their jobs require multiple forms before completion that are spread across multiple days and sometimes even months, but they all have to be added up to calculate the job total.
Yeah, so we do have form to form data transfer. I would recommend for that particular question, reaching out to your account manager, and we can work with you to get everything set up for your specific use case. And help guide you along the correct path. But yes, we can do form to form data talking.
We can make sure that all your forms communicate with each other. Beautiful. Actually, that is a good point. We'll be going over in just a moment too some really important contact information for people, just in case you are not yet a GoFormz user and you don't yet have an account manager. We can make sure that you know how to get in touch with one so that you can start the process, opening up your account, get started on the right foot. Let's see. The auto number fields. Okay, this one will be a good one. Is the auto number field a procedurally generated number that keeps changing on the previous forms completed, or is it a random number?
So it's the first one. Yes. So actually, I'll hop over here and just show you auto number. When I drag that field on, you can actually set your seed and then a custom key. And so then it will, each subsequent form will add on to that. So it is procedural, like you mentioned, but you get to choose the seed. So like, where is it going to start and how is it going to format? So like this one, we started with 0, but we added formatting for it to be 18 dash and then a number. So you can do something similar using that formatting and then the auto number, the numbers for auto number. But you could start the seed wherever you'd want to start that. But yeah, procedural as opposed to random.
So have you ever seen a use case? Sorry, this is follow up from me apparently. Have you ever seen a use case where people use sort of that, how you have that 18 dash? Could somebody set that to be like a year, like 2023 dash, and then that way the January 1st every year they create a new form and go for it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that random number, or not random number, the auto number can be used for you to be able to identify additional jobs, but then also organize your forms as well. So you could go ahead and then adjust the form or adjust the template to then be whatever new setup you need in order to keep track of your forms the way that you need to keep track of your forms. So yeah, you could preface it with a date. You could preface it with another number, like a job number or something like that, whatever is the most relevant to your business and your use case.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry. Apparently we get to ask questions too if we're up here speaking. All right. Next question for you. Is the calculation builder only used for building mathematical formulas, such as adding up values in a table?
Yeah, so no, the calculation builder actually can be utilized for a variety of use cases. It's very robust, so you can use it in that default property, default value property to do those mathematical calculations. So it absolutely can accommodate all of those math things that you need to be doing, adding up those totals, but it can also be used for some of those other examples we showed off or talked about today, like referencing the database. So using that database filter property, formatting properties, so you can change the required property, the visible property, color, background, and then also using that default form name. So there's quite a few things that you can configure and set up to have conditional logic using our calculation builder that are not inherently math-based.
Good to know it does both though. Good to know. Okay. In the calculation builder, will it tell me if I've entered it incorrectly? And that one, I'm not sure if they're referring to like the highlighting or the testing formula. Summer, would you mind showing the ways that if you're typing in if you're in the calculation builder, some of the ways that it'll alert you if it's not going to work right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main place that you will be able to identify if something's not correct is down here. This will be your first area of identifying, do I have an issue with my function? So if you add something that's not a number, like if I add text or like if I were, sorry, I don't know how to break this on the fly, but if you add something in there that is not valid, it's going to let you know. Like I've added the word text here and it's highlighted in red because this is not a valid property. This is not a valid property right now. So like if you want to add text, you do have to put the quotation marks around it, and you'll see that it then satisfied that as like an okay thing to add to a function. So this will be your first place. And since the thing that is being highlighted down here, like the function that's failing, it does say the name here, but it is also highlighting it in red here, so you can see that relationship. The other place is over here, your done button. You'll notice that it's red right now. It's letting you know like, hey, something is wrong. So if you had such a long calculation, I hope for you that, you don't, but if you do have such a long calculation in here that you can't see the whole thing, this will be red letting you know that somewhere something is broken. The other place that you'll be able to tell, so let's say you referenced a field in here. So I was summing, from that service date is not a number, but let's imagine it was service date. And then I went and deleted service date. You'll have an error validation tool that'll show up here, letting you know that something is now broken inside of your template. So even if you're not inside of the function on the individual function that you're building, if you do something or make a change somewhere else that does break it afterwards, that will show up here, giving you an error or a warning, letting you know which field is broken. And so you can go identify it and fix it at that time, or restore the field or piece of data that is necessary in order for that function to work.
Okay, so this is a very fail-safe system. If you're going to go dive into some functions, you're just playing around with it, there are a lot of opportunities for you to have a chance to go back and fix anything that isn't working.
Yeah, absolutely. And then direct you that the error log, when it does show up, does direct you to those specific fields and the specific area where the issue is. So, if the default value is fine, but there's an issue with the required property, it'll let you know where the issue is as well. And then also always feel free to reach out to us. Like, we are here to help too. So if, something's not working, you're like, why isn't it working? We're here to help you out, because this is a really powerful tool and we want you guys to be successful.
Perfect. Actually, in line with that, and as a follow-up question before we move on too far, for the form-to-form communication, is there a place you would recommend someone going to self-serve for that information, either in help documentation, or do they definitely want to contact their account manager? That's the best straightforward path.
Off the top of my head, I do not know of a specific help article, like the correct one to send you to. Going to our help.goformz.com would be the best place to look. But, I don't know. It looks like it says the questions maybe from an anonymous attendee, but if we have their information, maybe we can follow up with them, Victoria, with that, the correct information.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just the way that the question has been submitted was through an anonymous individual, but we should see that linked to an actual individual attendee in all of the post-webinar detail. So in that case, we can follow up and make sure that we get the right documentation piece sent to you. Otherwise, we will be sending out an email. So in case you don't hear from us individually, that means nope, you were anonymous, we couldn't find you. Feel free to just reply back to that email and ask that same question. Just say, hey, I need help. And to Summer's point, we love GoFormz. We love seeing businesses succeed with GoFormz. We don't want questions or getting hung up on something super small and specific to be what keeps you from getting the most out of your account. So make sure that you're reaching out to us. We have a fantastic team here that loves helping people. That is what drives them and gets them out of bed in the morning. So please make sure to ask questions. We're here to help. And I think we only have one more. It's about a specific form, an inspection form. Could you use GoFormz calculation to highlight items that are marked as failed or problematic? Just to mark it, not to ask for more details.
Yeah, absolutely. So you could use the color property to accomplish this. So just, spitballing off the top of my head. So if you have that inspection, anything that's marked with the value of failed, what you could do is have it change to red or yellow or some other color. So when you're reviewing that form, or whoever needs to review it later is able to see very quickly, like scannability, which items need to be addressed. So that is one way that you could go about that. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. And I lied. There's one more. I'm going to sneak this one in. Are calculations available on all GoFormz plans?
Yeah, so the calculation builder is available to all paid tiers. It is not available on our basic plan or unpaid basic plan, but it is available to all paid tiers. And then there are a few calculations that are advanced and above. So if there's something specific you're looking for, please reach out to your account manager.
Perfect. All right. I believe that's all the questions we've got right now. But again, you'll all be getting a follow-up email after this particular webinar is completed. So once you get that email, if more questions have popped up, I think that's actually the next slide, if memory serves, if I'm at the right place in my slide here. So close. What I get. Jump the gun. All right. First, some helpful resources that will be included in the follow-up email. You'll be able to get to our certification course. So if you have not already done it, we've launched a GoFormz certification course that is a fantastic way for you to get a deep dive, sort of one-on-one video walkthrough of all things GoFormz and really getting a detailed handle of your account and understanding things like calculations and the calculation builder, as well as a detailed tour of the template editor, understanding the big differences between your templates and your forms, public forms versus forms for your individual account users. There's a whole lot of information covered. It's a fantastic course. It's completely free, and it comes with a badge that you can pop on your LinkedIn profile, which always looks extra nice. So I highly recommend going for it. We also have an ebook, How to Use Calculations in Your Digital Form Template. So we'll be including that in the follow-up as well. Just a detailed walkthrough, some of the information that Summer covered for you, and then a little look at a few other ways to use calculations within your forms as well. We also have a pro tip guide, which is one of our blog posts that covers using conditional logic in automatic calculations. So that was some of the information that Summer covered as well. But if you want another deep dive into that, you'll have the ability to do it. And then, of course, links to the case studies that we covered and the recording of this particular webinar too. Now we get to the part about contact information. So if you'd like, obviously, reply to the follow-up email from the webinar. If you have just a random urgent question you want to see, we'll make sure that the right people get in touch with you. If you are a current customer, but you don't have your account manager's contact information, or you're not sure who your account manager is, or if you've never talked to your account manager, which I would highly recommend doing, you can email account management in general at goformz.com, and that will make sure that you get connected to the right person. If you are not yet a user of GoFormz, you can also talk to our sales team, sales@goformz.com, and they can make sure that you get set up with an account that really fits your needs, and you can ask them all the questions that you have specifically about what you're trying to achieve with your exact forms, where your paper forms are failing you right now, and how GoFormz can help. And if you have very technical, detailed IT questions, because those will always happen, then you can contact our support team at support@goformz.com, or as Summer mentioned, you can view our help documentation as well, or as I've mentioned probably too many times, our resources center off the main GoFormz webpage.